Sandra, it's just a great honor and pleasure to have you and to have you tell your story, both as a leader in our community in the JCC and the Thurnauer School of Music, but also your own story. So I'd like to start in your early days, your childhood, and particularly your childhood in relation to music. How did you develop an interest in music, and where did you grow up?
Well, I'm a Jersey girl, and I've lived my entire life except for 1 year in New Jersey. And I grew up in a house where there was a lot of music. It wasn't always contemporary music. It was either Strauss waltzes or cantorio music, or maybe Margaret Whiting. Anybody ever hear of her?
Mhm.
But she was one of my father's favorite, as well as Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra. We would walk miles to different synagogues in Newark, New Jersey, which was a kind of a pinnacle of cantorial music in those days. And I was just a toddler some of that time, and I remember riding to the synagogue on my father's shoulders because, it was a couple of miles. We heard Moshe Oisha and Russell Yoselblad and Richard Tucker and Jan Pearson and all the great cantors of that time. And in fact, I have not dispersed with my father's huge collection of these big reels of cantorial music from that day. He knew all the old nigun. My first association with music lessons was with a piano teacher named Professor Steiner. And from him, I learned how not to engage children in their music. I also learned that my mother could not tell whether I was practicing the pieces that I was supposed to be practicing when I went to the sheet music store and got Grieg's piano concerto when I was supposed to be playing, the very first books of piano playing. So she thought I was practicing the piano, but I was really just playing it. And of course, I never got very good at it because I never practiced. But I really didn't know anything about practicing until I became a mother parent of a child who studies with Dorothy Rothman. And then I learned about music.
Right. So in your childhood, you heard cantorial music. Coincidentally, I grew up also listening to a lot of cantorial music because I sang in a synagogue choir with an operatic cantor. Can you say a little bit more about what you liked about that music? What was so special about it?
Well, it stirred me greatly, I have to say, and still today, it reminds me of why I love opera, because somehow the music takes one out of oneself and you soar. That there are emotional components to cantorial music, and that's why I think I love opera so much. And I wanted to say one more thing about what I also learned that was not good about things. My father did play the violin, Dorothy. I don't know if I ever told you that, but his career in America ended about 2 months after he came to America because my grandmother took him to a community meeting of the Workmen's Circle and surprised him with Spiel, Mottel, Spiel, which means play, Mottel, play. His name was Muttel, and he was completely unprepared, and he played, and that was the last time he ever touched the violin. So I learned one thing that night: never do that to a child.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. There's a background noise. I'm not at home, and I'm at somebody else's desk that's making some sounds. Oh, it stopped. Good. But you mentioned your love of opera. Can you tell the story about tell us how you got interested in opera?
Well, my music interest was really accelerated by my music teacher in 5th grade, Sylvia Strassman, blessed memory. She came to school one day and she said, I have 13 tickets to the opera at the Metropolitan, and the first 13 children who come in with money for the ticket can come. And I ran home all the way because I wanted to hear what opera was. And my father was excited by that, and he gave me the money. And that wasn't easy in those days. And that was my first experience. We went to the old Metropolitan Opera, which was terrifying, actually, because we had the last seats in the balcony, and they're kind of straight up to the stage, straight down, I should say. And I remember holding on to both sides of the seats as I climbed up to my seat. And it was Lucia de Lammermoor. And, even so, I remember Lily Pons and what she looked like. And I was entranced. And the next year, she got us tickets to Carmen. And that was a whole different experience. And I felt, gee, this is one way and another way, and it seemed to hold everything for me. And it kept my attention even to this day.
And what grade was that? Do you remember?
5th grade. So
So,
I went to the opera in 5th grade, 6th grade, and then I don't remember why, but we stopped going to the opera. But I often think, isn't it a shame that today I don't hear of many opportunities for teachers to take children that young in New Jersey into the opera? Now, maybe the children in New York get to go. Certainly, I know the colleges get tickets, because now my grandchildren, which was what I was hoping, my husband and I had hoped that we could imbue an interest in the opera in our children and grandchildren. And I would say that all of my children were musical, all of them liked music, not all of them loved the opera, but they were game to go whenever we offered tickets. So that was great.
and one thing I love about that story, Sandra, is that it shows the impact that one teacher can have in a lifelong way on one student, and that impact, in your case, carried on to many, many others. It's a beautiful story. I want to stick on opera just for another minute or two, because I know that you've been a longtime attendee at the Metropolitan Opera and a big supporter of theirs and a big fan of theirs. What, for someone who's new to opera, or maybe is afraid of it or doesn't think they like it, what suggestions would you have to someone to try it out or to get into it?
Yeah, well, I started by taking my children to the dress rehearsals because I felt that if they got tired, I started them at 5 years of age, all of them. I like to create an atmosphere that the children would like. So I would start with Hansel and Gretel, Magic Flute, Fledermaus. I would start with things that I thought they could relate to as children. And then I would always have dinner there, or I would have dessert at intermission, and I would try to make it as much fun as possible. And of some Raisinets when they came in. I know that it's sweet and sugar, but I wanted to make it. I meant that the coming to the opera was associated with good memories, and I think it worked, because my 85th birthday party was taking my children and grandchildren as hosted by my daughters to the opera, and we went to see my favorite, which is Turandot.
And what is it that you love about opera? Like, why does that touch you so deeply?
Well, there are a lot of reasons why, but if I think about it, I think it's an emotional experience that might take pages and pages of a book. And it also has a lot of different facets. Like I love the costumes. I'm not as excited about opera now that it's in modern dress, but I love the grand costumes and the beautiful scenery. And it's actually a flight into another world in 3 or 4 acts, a whole story, a whole lifetime.
Beautifully said.
to me.
Yeah, I want to jump ahead to um, your one of your many hats. I'm sure one of the ones you're most proud of is being not just a parent, but a parent of young musicians. And you know, you've alluded to the fact that you wanted your children to enjoy opera and to enjoy music. But I'd like to hear about your experience as a music parent and what your how that was for you, and also maybe any advice you have for current parents in the school, for example.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know anything about parenting children playing music, as I said. And my older children did not benefit from their lessons as much. And I had noticed that they kind of petered out, their interest petered out. I didn't know anything about practicing and things like that. The benefits of music education are rampant. I mean, I think there's every aspect of life that is that the child benefits from different skill sets, meeting new friends, getting to go to concerts when they're very young. I mean, from Dorothy, I learned about how you incorporate music education into life education. And so it also keeps children very focused. It teaches them to be responsible. I remember one day Maggie left her flute on the streets of Manhattan, so it didn't last very long there. I mean, it teaches children a lot of things that are wonderful, and I think, uplifts their spirits. It's a great accomplishment to learn music and perform. I remember that Dorothy once told me that Mr. Suzuki had huge concerts in Japan where sometimes a child would just come on the stage, get into the right position, and leave the stage without performing. And everybody would clap and be excited for that child to have reached that level of expertise. I'm sure Dorothy and Diane and the other professionals who might hear me now say, well, that isn't, the goal. But I learned from our school that we start our students learning the correct positions and count that as a very important accomplishment.
For sure, for sure. So you mentioned, with your older children, you didn't have the experience of maybe being taught how to be a music parent. Can you tell us who were those influences who taught you how to be a music parent, and what were those specific lessons?
Well, I was very fortunate because a year after Amelia, who begged to play the violin when she was about 2.5 to 3, because a little boy brought his violin to show and tell at nursery school. But having had the experience of children not sustaining their interest in music, I waited till she was 4, and she was just pestering me so much. Anyway, a year after she began, Dorothy instructed me with a strong suggestion that she should go to the Manhattan School of Music. And there I met Diane Feligello, who has been a lifelong mentor to me, as well as Dorothy, who was my constant mentor and a constant help in reassuring and suggesting and enhancing all that I needed to know, including Terry Wager too at Manhattan School of Music.
Yeah, so you had
I have to say that also I learned a lot from my fellow parents and from being involved in the school. And some of it was positive education and some of it was negative, like learning what happened to my father, being pushed into a situation where he wasn't prepared. And I learned that from Diane. Diane at these performances of young children always found something positive to say about the performance that was true. And I always was in amazement of that, and I began to notice it And I began to understand what that meant to the child and how it enhanced their desire to have other things said about their good performance.
Mm. Life lessons learned through being a parent of a
Yes,
of a
yes.
young music student. It's beautiful. It's as always eloquently said by you. You know, something that not everybody might realize about you is that you are a counselor. You're trained as a
Yes.
and you've counseled, you know, many people, and I probably don't even know the half of what you've done in that department. But I do wonder how your experience as a counselor impacted your relation as a music parent, but maybe vice versa. How is your experience being a music parent, what you've learned from Dorothy and Diane and the other parents at the school? Maybe was there a connection there at all?
Well, you know, I think being an educator, you also have to be a good listener. Being a counselor, you also have to be a good listener. And I think that was a help. I also, people become counselors because they love people. And if they're school counselors, as I was, it was because you loved children. And I think that being a teacher of any subject, whether it's music or not, that at the base of your desire to share your art, your skills, your body of information that you're expert in, is a sincere interest and affection for the population that you're involved in. And I think, you know, I was prepared for children and education and music education as a part of that package of the universality of teaching. And of course, music, I consider a universal language.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I want to jump now, and well, actually, you talked about the role of being music parent. How you also have the role of being a music grandparent. What's that been like?
Wonderful. Because you know, as a music school parent, it's wonderful, but you have some responsibilities, as their teachers will surely indicate to you, and as I learned from my mentors and my fellow parents. You have responsibilities. You have to encourage the children to practice. You have to take them to lessons. You have to take them to concerts. You have to buy them recordings of the great artists so that they have the music in their brains and in their hearts. And I think I may have mentioned to somebody on this, but how it affects the children, the listening skills of children, and develops that skill. And when you have music in the family, the whole family, you know, goes to the concerts and you know, it participates. And
Yeah.
I remember one night Amelia was listening to the Bach double, and her sister, who was 2.5 in the other room, was listening too, because, you know, and it was a 33 1/3, and it started with another piece. And I heard this little voice saying after the music started, "That's not the Bach double. That's like Maggie when she was 2.5 years old." So, I mean, listening is a very, very important skill.
Yeah, well, with that story in mind, we're going to hop to our first photo of the night, which I think is going to warm some hearts. So if you're not looking at your screen right now, here's your big chance. Let's see if I do this right. Can everybody see this photo?
That's one of my thrills as a grandparent. Sometimes if Amelia can't take her daughter to her cello lesson, I get called SOS, and I run over and I pick up my granddaughter Rebecca, and we take her for cello lessons at Thurnauer. And
Yeah, there you go.
that's a lovely picture.
Yeah, I like that picture too.
Send me a picture of it.
You got it. I'll send it to you. So, well, in another picture, since we were talking about your childhood, you were kind enough to share one of your, I think this was in college, but this is a beautiful photo. Can everybody see this
That was
photo?
my first year in college, yeah.
First year in college is lovely.
Yeah,
Um,
I had a wonderful life in music as a young child in singing because my teachers that I mentioned, Sylvia Strassman, had identified me and my best friend across the street, Barbara Pelson, Barbara Myers Pelson, who was a real musician. She was a pianist. We used to sing all the time, and I had a lot of opportunities to sing. And one of them was many of them were in college when I sang in the university choir with
mm.
Bernstein and Ormonde and made a little
Wait,
money by singing in the chapel choir.
can you say that again? You sang in a choir in college. Did you say under Bernstein in Normandy?
Well, Rutgers University
Yeah.
chorus sang Carmina Burana with Ormonde, and we sang Beethoven's
Mm.
with Bernstein. I mean, there
Wow.
were other concerts we did also with
Yeah. Well,
yeah, it was a
I didn't, that's definitely something new I've learned about you tonight, Sandra, among many other things, but that's very cool.
yeah.
So this is another photo that you shared with us from a while back. And then we're going to move on to the school portion of the evening. Here's a lovely picture. Can everybody see this photo?
I sent this one to you because this is a picture that Maria Thurnauer took of me on the night that I became a president of the JCC on the Palisades.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's a nice, very nice
it
photo.
was wonderful. Yeah, she was a fine photographer.
Yes, she was. She was. Well, that's a perfect segue into. I do want to say, by the way, on the topic of singing, that we at Thurnauer to this day are we also encourage our students to sing, and we have a thriving young people's chorus at Thurnauer, and it's just so exciting to see our children sing, and we also have voice lessons. So it all continues. So now we want to hear about, we've talked about your childhood in music, your role as a parent of young musicians, which I know was part of the lead into the creation of a music school at the JCC, and which eventually became the Thurnauer School of Music. And there's quite a lot to tell there. And I guess I'll put it in a sort of forward question. Tell us the story.
Well, there's never just an isolated epiphany that that starts something and changes it from a conversation to an action. So of course, I mentioned some of the things that stirred me as a young fifth grader when my teacher gave me the job of leading the chorus in the balcony at auditorium day while she led the school in the singing of the Star Spangled Banner, etc. And I was doing the pitches and conducting. It started me in this road and reinforced that as well. So I was interested in music education a little bit from that experience, and of course being the mother of musicians, and for 17 years spending time at Manhattan School of Music in the preparatory division, and all the mentors that I mentioned. So all of those things were very important in coming to this conclusion of the importance of music education. But I also find that I'm a little bit of a problem solver. And one day, my daughter Amelia energized, and also I should say that both Dorothy and Diane shared with me their desire for different aspects of music education to take place, some that were absent, some that were there but needed further enhancement. So, all of those things I began to see as problematic and lack of accessibility by some populations. And so I was inspired to think along with Dorothy and Diane. In fact, Diane started a special accredited high school in New York City, and I was the guidance counselor for 4 years of that experiment. But what really got me on the track was that my daughter Amelia had a conversation with me one day on a Saturday going to the school in New York, and she said, you know, I can't. I don't know what I would do, because there's no music school for my children to go to that's not on a Saturday. And I don't want my children to go to music school on Saturday because I'd like to go to the synagogue on Saturday. And that made me understand also that there were other children who had religious obligations on Saturday and would not be able to have music school. And also, there was no music school of the caliber of Manhattan School of Music in New Jersey. And that is what changed the conversations for me about what could be into what should be. And so that's really a short summary of what happened and why there's a Thurnauer school, and why it seemed to me that if we had the credibility of a great JCC, which the JCC on the Palisades is, that it would be a good partnership to have a music school open to the community, a great Guild certified school, community music school of the caliber that we have, thanks to Dorothy and you and our faculty and all the people who supported it. Mostly, that's another area that I hope I have a chance to say, because we have really had the good fortune to have wonderful sponsors and enthusiastic supporters, and a wonderful community, the village, that allows us not only to teach music, but to teach humanity, to reach out to children who have very little in their school systems. And that included Amelia and my children, who went to the Englewood Public Schools at the time, that could even be in the same breath as what I had in Irvington, New Jersey, that allowed me to have these experiences that I described, and taking me to the opera and letting me conduct a chorus in 5th and 6th grade. I mean, we at the Thurnauer School include children who in other areas do not have any access to the arts, including music.
Yes, it's so important to give everybody those opportunities. And since the day I joined the school close to 30 years ago, it's been infused in the philosophy. And Dorothy has said it many, many times. You've said it many, many times. And I think it's critically important to give anybody who wants the opportunity to study music the opportunity.
Exactly. And I, as I like to say, that have a low income, families that have a low income but high interest in music, and wanting their children to have the opportunity to have a music education. We want them at the Thurnauer School of Music.
We definitely do, and that's why each year it's so important to get as much support as we can. And we're very grateful to the many people who do help us, including many people on this call tonight. Could you, in the spirit of the community, I wanted to share our next photo, but I want to then go back to a little bit more about the early days of the school. So here's the next photo, and includes a few people who are on this call. So can you all see this photo?
There. Hello, Diane. You see yourself? Hello, Dorothy, Eva. And it's a wonderful photograph.
It is.
Yeah, that's a wonderful photograph.
You want to tell us who everybody is?
Is that Rosetta? Is that Rosetta, Dorothy?
It's Rosetta Goodkind. Yes, Rosetta.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yes, and there's your husband Arnold as well. It's a beautiful photo. I think this might have been after one of the Founders Day concerts, which for those who don't know, the Sandra O. Gold Founders Day concert is a terrific series where once a year, at the end of the year, we have a concert honoring Sandra as the founder of the school. And we have, it was a series created with the support of Russ and Angelica Berry, who are close friends. Well, Russ is no longer with us, but very close friends of Sandra, and it was a beautiful tribute to them. And at that concert, we feature ensembles and some of our graduating seniors, and we recognize the Volunteer of the Year, and Sandra speaks, and it's a very special end of the year event. We've had it for more than 20 years now. I'm not sure the exact number at the moment, but
It's a wonderful treat that Angelica and Russ made possible, and it also highlights an opportunity for the entire community of student body to have a chance to perform. And this year I invited a guest to the Gift of Music and to the Founders Day concert, and that guest noticed that our JCC, through the Thurnauer School, invites into its programmatic opportunities populations of kids and their families who would never have a chance to step into our facility, and noticed that with some pride also, that we were sharing at the JCC with other communities that didn't have that kind of a building and that kind of a gym and all that stuff. It was a wonderful opportunity to showcase what we do. I love that night and that day very, very
for
much.
sure.
Thank you.
Well, one of the things, Sandra, that I'd like to go back to a little bit more about those early days in the school. School started in the fall of '84. I know that Dorothy was working round the clock with, bringing on a faculty. What are your memories of those days and what it took from your side of things to, as an active board member, for example, to convince people that this was this project was something worth a JCC having, and why?
A lot of people have talked to me about that, Michael, and asked me, well, how do you do this? Well, it isn't easy. And still, you and Dorothy have a huge job. And I would say that, the easiest part of creating a music school at a JCC is the idea. Not that it was universally jumped at, but it was the easiest part. And Dorothy is the first thing that I think people should do is they should look for the professional whose ideas are aligned with the values of the host institution. And then they should choose a person like Dorothy Rothman. And I know Diane Flagella would say the same thing at Manhattan School of Music. You need to find somebody who has the passion, who has the vision, and who has a work ethic par excellence, because it's a labor of love and it's a labor. And it's and for Dorothy, it's a 24-hour day. If she's not at the desk or at the piano side, with the student, she's thinking about some new aspect that would make the lives of children more music education available into the lives of children who currently don't have it. And every other day there's a wonderful project that we can bite into and problem solve about, etc. So the first thing would be to find somebody like Dorothy, and it wouldn't be easier. And then Dorothy has to find someone like Michael and a faculty that is just filled with artists, and the children learn to be artists and play music. Just like I always say, my mother thought I was playing, practicing the piano, but I was just playing it. So that's number one. Number two, I think that it must be understood that without the benefactors, it would be ordinary. Our school is extraordinary, and we early on, met our benefactors, Maria and Bill Thurnauer, and later Lilo Ollendorf Thurnauer, and they became the grandparents of the school. I was there, and I saw it. They loved the children. The children felt embraced by them. They not only put their resources behind the school, but and then they were enhanced with many other people who, I have to say, Dorothy, you're going to be angry, I think, Michael, because I mean, so many people come to mind, those early days, the Handlers, the Holzers, the Wine Flashes. I mean, help me, Marion Cutler. I mean,
you're doing very well. The Nooses,
Russ
yeah,
and Angelica,
Loring, yeah,
Kanakaw, just so that we were so fortunate that people in our community understood that music is the focus for other values, friendship, kindness, excellence, learning skills. I mean, so many things. Many of our music school families gave of their time, their service. I always say, when I think about this, that people who are involved with our music school, everybody can give something. They can give service, they can give contacts, they can give resources and cash. I mean, there's so many ways to be involved and helpful in creating the kind of spirit that we have at our music school. And the whole Thurnauer family, I have to thank them also, because they have always been proud to be a part of this, and certainly as their parents devoted so much of their lives and their spirit to this project, and they came right along and joined in. So we have had that at the beginning. Now, a lot of times a new music school will start with the ideas and the talent and the development, as I say, but they don't have the support from the community that we had. And I say, you need to have fundraising, then you need to have program development, then you need to have fundraising, then you need to have faculty development, then you need to have fundraising, and then you need to have parental involvement, then you need fundraising. So, having people like the people we had in our community who came forward helped us to get a leg up on becoming extraordinary, which, I don't teach there. I don't, and I don't have my name on it. It is an extraordinary school.
Thank you, Sandra. That's great to hear. It's all, we could sit and listen to you for a long time. It's just beautiful what you just said. It's a good segue to a few more photos that I want to share. Here's the next one. This is a photo. Can everybody see this one?
Oh my, Dorothy.
This is a photo from after Bill and Maria, I think, first gave their first major donation to the school. That's Dorothy, and that's Maria Thurnauer, Bill Thurnauer, and Sandra on the right. That photo was part of this article, which is on the wall in Dorothy's office in a plaque. I have to share again, 1 second. Can everybody see this? Everyone see JCC on the Palisades Gets Gift?
Oh, wow.
So that's where that photo's come. It's from 1987. And I think when we interviewed Dorothy, or if she maybe wants to tell the story in a little bit, she can tell how Bill and Maria first came to the JCC, and that's a lovely story in itself. But this, if you ever, next time you're in Dorothy's office, look to the left and you'll see this on the wall. This is a photo of one more. Where did it go? This is a photo I love of Bill and Maria at I think when they were honored at the Bergen County Volunteer Center, and our children performed there that night, and it's just a sweet photo of them all, dressed up. We also have somewhere a picture of them in the Thurnauer t-shirts, which was the opposite end of dressed upness. And then a lovely photo. Thank you to Ava for getting this to me on short notice. But this is a photo of our dear Lilo, whom we miss terribly. She was such a great presence at the school for years and years. So this is just a lovely photo as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you've spoken.
I just have to say, thinking about those days and the friendships that we had with the Thurnauers and Lilo and Eva. I mean, these are all my friends today, I think that the role of a volunteer is not only, to do the job, but we get so much back in terms of our friendships. Eva Holzer and I are always planning to go to the opera together. We'd love to be together. When Angelica's in town, I'm always trying to say hello, even though it's not always easy to catch each other. But we have made deep and abiding friendships. That's what I'm saying,
Yeah. Sandra, before we open up to questions, the sort of two related questions I have for you in closing. One is, what are your thoughts as you now look at the school and what has been accomplished over the past close to 40 years? And it started in the fall of '84, so it's almost 40 years. And what are your hopes for the future of the school and its role in our community?
Well, as time passes, I think about the future in terms of leadership and sustainability. That's what I think about. I mean, we have had an incredible past and a fabulous present, but I have noticed more and more about how if you aren't careful, things can change very quickly. I guess all of us have noticed that in the last couple of years. So, I'm starting to think about how do we preserve and enhance the values of our music school in terms of opening our arms to children, as I said, of high interest but low incomes. I think about, how is the arts community, being taken care of properly in times of financial stress and distress. Yeah, I think about things like that. And I hope that all of us who have had children who benefited from Thurnauer are thinking about it too.
Yeah. Well, before we switch into sort of the open Q&A, on behalf of all of us at the school, on behalf of Dorothy and everyone watching, I want to thank you, and we'll thank you again later, but thank you for all you've done for the school, for the JCC, for the community, from having the idea to sort of remaining an ongoing advisor, supporter, presence, liaison, many things. It's been an honor to know you all these years and to learn from you, and thank you for sharing your wisdom with us tonight. So with that, anybody who would like to say or ask a question or say a few words, you're welcome to. And we'll just try to not speak over each other, but you're welcome to unmute yourself if you're muted, and show your camera if you want, and you raise your hand or or not?
Can I go first, Michael?
Yes. And then Diane, yes, go
Okay.
ahead. And then Dorothy.
Sandra, first of all,
I hope somebody's going to talk about We Came to America.
Oh, we can do that. We can do that.
Sandra, I wanted to talk about We Came to America. No, I'm just kidding. I'll let that for the next person. First of all, thank you. It's always beautiful to sit and listen to you talk. I have two questions that I wanted to pose to you. I'm curious to see your answers. The first one is, I love hearing the story about the founding of our Thurnauer School of Music. And the way that you describe it and the way that Dorothy describes it, it always sounds like Dorothy and I were chatting. We said we wanted a music school, went to JCC, and the next week there was a music school. What I'm really curious about in the first question is if you can just talk a little bit more about what the timeline and the difficulties were from when you started making that decision. This sounds like a good idea, to when we actually had the first few students walk through the door. And the second question is, the problem that we face is an aging donor base, and finding younger people of means who have the same interest in supporting to the same extent a community music school, and where you think that's going to come from and how that should be approached. So those are my two questions. Thank you so much for your thoughts tonight.
Because the JCC community is a very thoughtful community, the leadership of the JCC is extremely thoughtful. And because we had high expectations for excellence, there was concern about, well, what is inviting in the community at large into our facility when we had certain rules about children's and membership and a whole base of long history of these ideas about how the center should be run. So, of course, it wasn't unanimous. I think I said that. It's turned out to be a terrific partnership. And I think that we're that the Thurnauer School and the JCC and the Palisades share much more than I think some of the leadership expected. But over these years, the leadership has said to me very often, oh, we were wrong about worrying about, if membership would change. And Bill and Maria's thoughtfulness when they made the gift of naming the school addressed some of those concerns. And once there seemed to be some financial understanding of what it might take for the JCC to have within it an entity like the music school, I think we grew to find more in common than was previously day one. So that's true. And I think that's always the case when one entity that's long-standing is going to accept into its fold an entity that has no history with them. Next question was about our aging donor base. Wow. That's one, as I said, that I have some concerns about. And last night I was out to dinner with some wonderful philanthropists from the community, the Blocks and the Aronsons and Angelica and I, talking about it, not only for the music school, not only for the JCC, but for all of the historic agencies in our community. I suppose that one thing that could happen is that our donors who understand the need of the music school and of the agencies in our community that require support, longstanding, is that they can make an endowed gift while they can to ward off some exigencies that would happen if we suddenly find that no one in the Bergen County cares about music or the arts or whatever. Or having a community center or any one of those plus ones I haven't mentioned. So I think that that's one thing that could happen that would ward off catastrophe. And then I think from my conversation last night, not my idea alone, but with my support, that we have to appeal now to younger people. Everybody who is currently involved and cares about the music school should have their children or their children's children or friends in the community step up and become leadership, because we need young ideas, we need young thoughts, we need young support, and they don't always coexist or coincide with what we as older, and I count myself in the older division now that I turned 85. Just now, I just started. Not that I don't think of myself as 40, but you know. So that's my answer so far, but that is my concern, and that's what I said earlier. The sustainability of what we do now, of the ideas that Dorothy has that we haven't even implemented yet. Her list is very long, and so are the faculty's ideas and other people's ideas who talk to Dorothy and Michael. And so, yes, I worry about it, Craig. I wish I had a better answer. Maybe you have an answer. You want to share one?
I wish I had the final answer. I mean, this is what the problems that we're grappling with daily, isn't it?
Yeah. Diane, yeah, and then Dorothy. Quite a lineup we have.
First of all, Sandra, you're just fantastic. It was just so wonderful to hear you. I just admire you, and you're just one of my favorite. But I have to begin by saying, when I was the director of the pre-college, which that's what's called now, is a preparatory division, I think Amelia could not have been more than 4 or 5 years old. And every year I had a Founders Day concert, of course, for the founder of Manhattan School of Music. And Amelia came over to me and she goes, "What's a founder?" And I had to laugh, because this young girl, the word founder, what would that mean for a 5-year-old? Well, Amelia, I hope you know today what the word founder is, and that's your mom. Now, I had the privilege of knowing Janet Skank, the founder of the Manhattan School of Music. And her ideas and her standards were so high that she was just fantastic. And I see all her problems were the problems that we are having today. We all have these problems, and she surmounted them. And I see how Dorothy has taken one at a time. I remember Janet Skank, at one point she had involved the junior league in the city of New York. Every time a new opening in Broadway came, I mean, they all had fundraisers at every new oh boy, every new thing was from, I gotta turn that off. I'm sorry. And so the future, of course, the future is unknown out there, but I have hope when I see that every city in the United States has a orchestra. Almost every city has some kind of youth program going on. Of course, they have so many sports programs going on also. And I think that the parents sort of decide what their priorities are. And if their priorities are football or baseball, chances are the children will be doing that. But I think it's so important that our public schools keep the music program, and parents, all parents, have to fight and have to want to keep the programs in the way we keep in our sports program. We must keep in those music programs, because this is where those students who don't have parents like you or grandparents like you, whose priority is music, whose priority are elsewhere, we need to have those teachers in the public schools at least introducing music to the children. And then I just have so much hope for the future, because I see in every city, I see these orchestras coming out. I see the youth orchestras coming out. How does it happen? It happens with people like you and with people like Dorothy, who are just so passionate and who have these high standards. And Dorothy, her standards of teachers, not only her standards of teaching, but has brought in fantastic teachers. And I have seen the Thurnauer School from the very beginning. I saw it before it was Thurnauer. I saw what you and Dorothy did, and I saw the work you did. And my hat is off to you. I just admire you so. I admire Dorothy. And I just know there's a future. There's a big future, because your foundation was so wonderful. That's what I have to say. I love you, Dorothy. You too. And all those wonderful.
We love you.
But I know your standards were high, and that's what's going to keep that school up there. That's what's going to keep going.
Yeah, it's beautiful, Diana. It's a perfect segue to Dorothy.
Well, I want to say I cannot imagine that I could be luckier than having Sandra as a friend. It's almost 40 years, and I can still call her at midnight and talk about a problem that we're having at the school to get her advice. And what a great gift that is, to be able to have someone to work with together, to build something, and to be able to sustain it for so many years. So, Sandra, thank you so much. And let's go for another 50, okay?
Do I have to sign?
Yeah, you do.
Does anybody else have something they want to say or ask? That's just open forum. Amelia, you just done, there you go.
Well, I feel like watching Mommy speak tonight and seeing all of these incredible, more than teachers, really super mothers, musical mothers to me, Dorothy, Diane, and I think Patty. I see Jay Selman's on the call, so Patty Kopek may be on this call. You know, these are the greatest influences in my life, including not only learning to play the violin. Dorothy was my teacher starting age 4. Diane was my first orchestra teacher, age 6, 7. And Patty was my violin teacher from middle school through high school. But, you know, growing up and watching this as a child happen, when Craig asked that question, you know, I have a lot of memories of the blood, sweat, and tears that, you know, Dorothy put into building the school. I actually found the picture, Michael, the other day of like us standing at the piano with Elena Belli. And just so many memories. And, you know, when I think about the future of music education, as this is my life's work also, you know, the impact of a community music school is a life-saving, culture-saving, community-saving venture. And as I've watched the school expand and really embrace the community in the way every Jewish agency should and is compelled to do, and to watch that language be music, it just is the model for really every school. So I'm so proud of my mother, even though I didn't practice when she told me to. who does? And everyone stood by me. And I was thinking, Diane, your words are ringing in my ears. A community music school is created by the artists, educators, and their parents. And we have, in the next stage is really reaching all of the children who do not have a family structure to support them, and how we're going to address this. I had a kid that said to me in my school, I don't know if I'm going to do orchestra in 7th grade. This was a 5th grader. And I said, that's not a choice. Everyone plays an instrument all the way through school. And they looked at me, they're like, oh, you mean it's like math? And I said, it's a part of your education. So, no one fights harder than Dorothy and Michael. And I just think the future is so bright with everything you guys are coming up with. And it was just so fun to hear Mommy's stories. And I know she'll want to tell you more how she convinced all 13 of her grandchildren to love going to the opera, because it's not going to the opera, it's going to the opera with their SAFTA. And, Dr. Suzuki taught us that if you want the children to love music, you have to show love. And that is at the heart of the music school and in the hearts of everyone on this page. So Michael, thank you for having this event. It was really a beautiful experience.
Thank you, Amelia. Thank you. And we're honored that we have Katinka Kopek to join, who would like to say a few words. 1 second, please. Bring her up.
I'm sorry I couldn't join you from the beginning because I just finished having a string meeting at Manhattan School. So I told my dearest husband, who's really, I don't think I would ever be where I am in music if I didn't have the kind of husband that I have that supports it. But with that, what I want to add is, as Amelia and Sandra and of course Dorothy and Michael, you all say, is that in order for children to thrive in music, they have to have a family support. If they don't, it doesn't work. I can share with I have my grandchildren who's, I practice with them, thank God, on Zoom, because if I didn't, their parents don't have the time. And maybe not, it's not all fair to say that they don't have the time, but don't understand that music is as an education the same way math and English and everything else is. And of course, Sandra, you know all that. And Dorothy, I don't know if you're aware, I have a student this year, well, for a few years now, whose mother just wrote a whole biography on Suzuki. Did you know that?
No.
I haven't gotten the copy. I will get it tomorrow from the student, but there was a whole review in the New Yorker about it. Did you see it, Amelia?
Yeah, I saw the review. It wasn't a review, but an article about the Suzuki approach. Yeah.
It was very interesting to read about Suzuki. I'm sure you know a lot more than I do. I mean, where he studied and how he had to convince his parents about pursuing music. But anyway, I think this was wonderful, and I really am sorry that I missed this program today. Jay will share.
We did record it, Patty, so I'll be able to share that with you.
Great.
Yeah, and Amelia and Maggie met Mr. Suzuki and played for him at Manhattan School of Music when they were little. Remember, Amelia?
And I don't know if everybody.
I told that to my students the other day. I remember when Dr. Suzuki came to MSM. I remember the book that Dorothy helped us compile. And I remember that Sherry Bart said when she grows up, she wants to play pieces like Go Tell Aunt Rhody and the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto. She was 4 years old.
I don't know if everybody knows that Dorothy studied with Dr. Suzuki in Japan in 1967.
And I was pregnant at the time, and it was very hot in the summer.
Well, before we wrap up, is there anybody else who would
Yes,
like to
I'd
say?
like to say something.
I don't know. I can't see who that is. I'm sorry.
It's Judith Aronson.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
First, before I address you, Sandra, I wanted to say something to Dorothy, because besides having the passion, Dorothy, you know you have compassion. And I don't know if you remember when Herman, my husband, had Alzheimer's, but the last thing to go was his music. He liked to play the fiddle. And he used to come to the center, and Dorothy would play with him twice a week, he and his teacher, Carrie White. And it was just, you really helped him so much to get through this very terrible time. And I'm always thankful for having met you and having had you in my life. And thank you very much, Dorothy. Sandra, I have nothing to say about you because it would take me all night. I just can't say enough about my dear friend, Sandra, whom I met when she was pregnant with Amelia. So we go back 50 some odd years, and there's just too much to talk about. So I enjoyed your show tonight. I love you very, very much. And thank you for being my friend.
I would also like to say that I enjoyed every moment listening to you explaining everything. And I will send you an email, Sandra, about something I want to say. Bye-bye. It was lovely to hear from you.
And we do have I think one final question from perhaps the youngest viewer tonight, Michael Phillips, who is on our staff team at Thurnauer.
Yes.
Michael.
Hi. Thank you so much for doing this talk. I've really enjoyed it. Through reading your bio, I see that you're also involved in healthcare as past president of the Arnold Gold Foundation. And I'm just wondering if you can comment on any crossover you might have observed between practicing music as a profession and practicing healthcare as a profession, practicing medicine. Do you see any crossover there, since both of those seem to be a really big part of your life? And thank you again for your time tonight.
Yeah, thank you for that question. The Arnold P. Gold Foundation is created to promote compassion in healthcare. And I think all of life is healthcare, isn't it, Philip? I mean, the question speaks to me that you understand that. And so it definitely it has the same base of values about respect for other people. If you ever notice anything about music, it doesn't matter how old you are, what race you are, where you live. It just matters how you play. And that's what healthcare is also. Doesn't matter anything else, doesn't matter. But if you need healthcare, that's what people care about. And doing it with the great compassion and with emotion, and all of that matters. So yes, I suppose I got into the healthcare business in a very roundabout way, which is for our next Zoom meeting together. But it's a great question, and I think that anybody who knows me knows that that music and healthcare are very aligned.
Thank you. Andy, I'm sorry your video had been blocked. Do you want to say anything? And we're so honored to have you with us. This is Andrew Thurnauer, is one of the two children of Bill and Maria Thurnauer.
Well, let's see. Sandra told a story about not putting someone in front of an audience when they're not prepared. But
oh, sorry about that.
I'll try to say something. My parents lived for classical music. My mom was a contralto, and I think my,
Oops. Uh-oh. You may have unplugged something. Oh, and Andy, are you there? Maybe he'll join us back on. Let's give Andy a second. I was hoping that would be sort of the closing, but if we can all be patient, I bet you he'll hop back on. Let's hope. In the meantime,
I'm looking at the screen and there's Eva and Vivian on the same screen. And then there's Amelia and me. Dorothy has a daughter who, well, she has several children who are interested in music and are musicians. Craig, you have a younger one, and Berta, you're still working with us from day one. You were there. And so I'm looking at that and answering the question that was asked of me, Michael, about sustainability. So I am hopeful that that observation that I just made, that we have some bodies who are interested in the question that you asked of me that I don't really have an answer to yet. Totally.
Speaking of questions, Roberta has her hand up, so let's hear from Roberta Paula Books, our longtime Thurnauer friend.
Yes, since
Right.
day one.
Since day one. My daughter was one of the first, in the first class of, I think, 34 students.
Yep.
And so what I wanted to say was that, unlike almost everybody here, I have no love of music. So that sounds awful. I mean, I don't listen to music. It's not that I don't like it, but when I brought my daughter and I brought Martha there, really as an activity, because I worked on it, I thought it was just something nice for her to do. So, but when I got to the school, what communicated to me was the passion and quality of the thought that went into the school. And the result was that I did a lot of work for the school. I used to do the newsletters. I used to do the budgets. I mean, I spent a lot of time and commitment to the school, not because I love music, but because I love the school. And I could see the quality it brought to the children. So I thank you all for that.
Yeah,
that's all.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. And thank you, Roberta. You've been steadfast and extremely helpful to us for year after year after year. And now Sam's helping us too, which is also lovely.
Right.
Okay, well, unfortunately, it looks like Andy Thurnauer didn't make it back.
There.
Are you here, Andrew?
Andrew's there.
yeah, apparently
Okay.
turning on the video just used up all the juice I had left in my computer, but I plugged in.
Okay, well,
So now I'm back and I don't have anything particular to say, except that I began to talk about how much my parents love music, and my mom ran her Friends of Music Society for years, singing and leading a group of chamber musicians who put on concerts regularly. My dad, in addition to being a businessman, was a concert promoter and ran the Civic Music Association, and we had some of the world's greatest musicians in and out of our house all the time. I remember driving Rudolph Serkin to a concert that he was performing for Civic Music in my old jalopy, and the heater didn't work. It was the middle of winter, and he kept rubbing his hands together so that they wouldn't freeze before the concert. Anyway, they were so involved with music. And then my mom got older and her voice wasn't what it used to be, and Civic Music came to an end. And then came the music school, and this completely rejuvenated my mom's life, and my dad loved it too. And my family and I were up in Boston, and my sister and her family were in Seattle. So the music school provided all the grandchildren that my parents could have wanted. And they absolutely loved the school, and thank you all for providing that for them.
She turned to photography. Did you hear me?
I'm sorry, is that Eva Holzer?
Yes.
I couldn't
I
hear
say she turned to photography.
you. She had,
Photography gave her the impetus to go to the school and make pictures of the children who played.
yes, she had been actually a photographer years and years. And as Michael knows, my parents spent many summers at the Marlborough Music Festival. In fact, they started going there right around when it started, and the concerts were in the dining hall. And she took wonderful photographs of the musicians at Marlborough. So she'd been doing it for years. She enjoyed having children as portrait subjects. So that was great for her as well. Yes.
We still have her pictures up all around the school, Andrew.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful, Andrew. So nice to hear. Before I give Sandra the final word, is there anything else? Dorothy, would you like to say anything before Sandra closes us off? Sorry, I put you on the spot.
In the true spirit of our school, our gift of music in 2024 is going to be "We Came to America," and it will celebrate the diversity of cultures that we have in this country and people that we have in this country. It's really who we are as a country, and I think that our music school reflects the country as a whole. We are an example of how people of all races, religions, colors come together and collaborate and make music together beautifully. So save that date. It's a year away, January 20 and 21 in 2024. And we have a gift of music coming in this January, which is celebrating Madeline Goltz, who's a wonderful cello teacher and is Rebecca's cello teacher. And the featured guest artist is a wonderful cellist, Astrid Schwein, who is the cellist in the Juilliard String Quartet. So I think that will bring us all together. And
yeah, let me just say something about We Came to America, which Dorothy is too modest to talk about, but we will be premiering a piece that was composed for the school by Rob Capello. The children will be performing at NJ PAC with the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra. It will be actually part of the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra's annual subscription schedule. And so it's going to be really an extraordinary performance, something very different from our usual. I mean, our gift of music concerts are always wonderful, but this is like a whole different experience.
yes.
Okay, so before we close, I have this fun idea, sort of. It's such a epic gathering. I know some people had to hop off, but if you're not showing your video and you want to, please do, because we're going to do the classic old group photo if people want to show themselves. Craig, yeah, okay. There, hi. Hi, Karen, nice to see you. Hello, Julie. So I'm just going to take a screenshot photo. Just look up a little bit. Eva, we just see the top of your head. If you can look up a little bit. If you back up, Eva. That's it. There we go. There we go.
That's good.
Okay.
No, back up, Eva.
Well, okay.
Sit back a little bit. Sit back a little bit.
Yeah,
there we go.
that's
There we
good.
go. Okay, 1 second, everybody. And now that's good. That's good. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Karen's in. Great. Okay. All right. With that, I want to give Sandra. First of all, I said it before we did the Q&A. This was a great treat for us, Sandra, to hear your words. They're always inspiring. They're always beautiful and eloquent, and we learn. We have fun, and I think we get inspired as well. And as we heard from everybody, this was just very special to get to spend this time with you tonight. And I want to give you so we thank you, we all thank you, Dorothy, on behalf of Dorothy and all of us at the school, all of us connected with the school. Thank you for everything you've done with and for the school and continue to do. And I want to give you the chance for the final words, and then we'll say goodbye.
Well, I'd like to say something funny, but I don't feel like funny. I feel really moved, and thank you for your words. I know they're a bit on the side of exaggeration, but on the screen right now are people that mean a lot to me, and the school means a lot to me. And as you can hear, when I said fundraising and sustainability are on my mind, if they're on your mind too, please give me your ideas and stay my friends, because you're my village. When I'm with you, I feel connected to all the values that I hold dear. And though they come through the music school, they do not come from the music school alone. They come from a deep place of real interest in humanity. And our last project that we talked about, to me, when Dorothy told it to me, I couldn't get over it. What a time. How did Dorothy know to get the composer who would write this composition at this time in the history of America? So I'm grateful to you, Dorothy, for this other wonderful ideas. You're always getting them. And I'm looking forward to this, as you know. I think that it is the right time and the right place for music to bring together our country and our people and all that's good in the life. So thank you to all of you for making the Thurnauer Music School what it is today. All of you who have been on this call have had a role in that, and I am blessed to have you in my life. And that's it.
Thank you.
For all the comments which were very constructive. It was very wonderful to listen to.
Thank you, Rita.
I wish you a good night. I must go.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Good night.
Good
Call you at 2 o'clock.